Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. Political analyst Ntsikelelo Breakfast says opposition parties need to diversify their leadership if they want a fighting chance at the 2024 general elections. Now, the Democratic Alliance, the Economic Freedom Fighters, as well as ActionSA, are among the parties on the opposition benches looking to topple the African National Congress come 2024. Breakfast believes that a lack of new voices in the party's upper echelons is likely to work against it. Well, let's unpack this further with Ntsikelelo Breakfast, a political analyst who joins us this evening. Very good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time. Welcome to Newzroom Africa. What you say that political parties, opposition parties, need to diversify. What will parties like the EFF, the DA, ActionSA need to reflect on as they want a fighting chance at the 2024 general elections?
Well, first of all, I think opposition parties as they stand, they fail to capture the imagination of the electorate, largely because they are fragmented. They don't function as a unit or as a unified force. So there's a need for reimagination of opposition parties. Now, some opposition parties will find that they revolve around certain personalities, whereby you have personalities which are overbearing over certain opposition parties. So there's a need to diversify the leadership to make sure that not only certain people are always under the spotlight. I think that can go a long way in terms of reaching out to the electorate, because the danger of having opposition parties which are fragmented is that gives the ANC an upper hand. Yes, the ANC is not performing the way it should have, but at the same time, if opposition parties are fragmented, the ANC might win elections maybe by 50% on the dot, despite the fact that it has fallen short in terms of promoting development for the majority.
You say overbearing personalities. I mean, who are you talking about? Are you talking about the EFF's Julius Malema, for instance, or ActionSA's Herman Mashaba? What sort of...
No, yeah. I think you're playing a devil's advocate there. I'm talking about Herman Mashaba. I mean, if you take away his personality, then there's no political party. Everything, in my opinion, revolves around his personality. That's why at some point there was a war that broke out between himself and Dr. Khoza. You know, so I think they need to make sure that not only the same people are always under the spotlight, other people also are given a platform to sort of like articulate what the party stands for and so on, so that the party can be seen to, be standing for different values.
Now, ActionSA and the DA are said to be putting their differences aside and preparing to join forces as, in the lead up to the 2024 elections. Both leaders have spoken about the importance of stabilizing their partnerships at local government level, of course, following the instability in the Gauteng metros. What do you think the steps should be with considerations to perhaps invite other smaller parties to join forces?
Well, it looks like coalition formations are the future, despite the fact that they are unstable and unworkable. But the beauty of this is that, all these opposition parties are in this thing together, and they need to find a way of making these coalition formations work in order to make our democracy flourish, and also in order to render various services to the inhabitants of those localities. So, I mean, I've always argued that there is a need to develop a conflict management mechanism because there seems to be a missing link between coalition formations and some provisions of conflict management. So that gap, I think, needs to be bridged because, I mean, the ANC has been dealt with a blow of late in terms of its electoral performance. So, I mean, there is no other way but to make a coalition formations work. But I think Salga also can take a decisive stand in terms of how these coalition formations should operate in terms of developing a framework.
Now, when it comes to predictions, I mean, you spoke about 50%, but it's been said in previous polls that the ANC will fall to 42% of the votes, with the suggestions that South Africa is going to see its first national coalition arrangement in 2024, as you've suggested. How do you see that playing out?
No, what I'm saying is that it is possible that the ANC can lose power in the upcoming general elections. That possibility is not far-fetched. But at the same time, I'm saying that if the way things are doesn't change, then it will give the ANC an upper hand. If opposition parties are fragmented as they are, that will give the ANC an upper hand to do better, even though it is not doing well in terms of rendering services to the people. So opposition parties, they need to reimagine the way they operate. They need to function as a unit and make sure that they put their differences aside and put the interest of citizens first.
In reimagining the way they operate, how significant do you think the upcoming DA elective conference will need to be, of course, in the wake of the years of infighting, the resignation, instability, and perhaps making up for lost ground, especially with a decline at the polls?
Look, I mean, the DA, as you indicated earlier on, I mean, has lost too much ground in terms of its electoral performance. It has lost votes to the Freedom Front because I think the predecessor of the incumbent could not articulate the ideological standpoint of the party. I think the current leader of the DA is fine, in my opinion. He can articulate what the party stands for. But his problem is the fact that, I'm sorry to say this, but he's a white person, and that doesn't sit well to some black people who think that the party is not pursuing a transformation. So that seems to be a challenge, in my opinion. And also the party, because now it has a white person, comes across not to be gravitating to black communities, but to be more entrenched in middle-class white suburbs. So they need to work around that so that they don't come across to be a party that is also focusing on white communities.
Yeah, but I think a lot of black leaders have left. I mean, we saw the exodus of and the gaps and some of the reasons put forward as to why they've left the DA.
Yes, they have left because there have always been two factions in the DA, the Black Caucus and the other faction that purports to be espousing non-racialism and its ethos. So I get the sense that the Black Caucus has lost the debate because they thought that they could fight on the inside, you know, in terms of advocating for racially inspired policies of triple BE and affirmative action. But now the party is gravitating to non-racialism, meaning that the party is transcending beyond racial categorization, that the party does not pigeonhole people. So some people think that then the only way out is to walk out of the party because they cannot win this debate of advocating for transformation. Because, I mean, if you say that you espouse non-racialism, it means that you don't see color. You are transcending beyond color. But some people are arguing that some people are advocating for non-racialism to block transformation. Because if you say you are a non-racialist, it means that you don't support racially inspired policies. So that seems to be the challenge within the DA at the moment.
Yeah. And looking to the build-up to the 2024 elections, we've seen how small parties have big influence, but there seems to be no quick fix to solutions for the political dysfunction, the greed, the lack of concern for voters that lie perhaps at the heart of the governance problems at all three levels of government in South Africa. What do you think should be the focus when it comes to stabilizing the coalition governments as we head to 2024?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to sound like a stuck record, but I think there is a need for, a mechanism that is going to force opposition parties to abide by what they've agreed upon. You know, not to chop and change Today they side with this party, tomorrow they side with the other party. That makes coalition formations to be unworkable and unstable. So coalition formations, they require a very nuanced approach so that when there are conflicts, where there are human beings, there are problems. Conflict is a natural phenomenon, but it doesn't mean that because there's a conflict, a particular political arrangement must fall apart. So they need to work on that in order to make these arrangements flourish.
Now, perhaps just looking at some of the developments today, ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula saying that the Palapala report, which is hanging over the president's head, will not be discussed when the party's national conference resumes in Mangaung on Thursday. What implications do you think may follow as a result of that?
Well, that's an interesting kind of event. I'm not taken aback by that because, Mbalula has always struck me as a henchman of the incumbent. So it comes across to be sort of like, covering up for him. It's obvious that the president has won the debate and also the conference politically. But there's also a legal debate that has to be resolved by the Constitutional Court. And if things don't go according to plan for him, it might be a double blow, because it's not obvious that the Constitutional Court is going to rule in his favor. It can rule against him, and that will be a blow, despite the fact that some people are trying to cover up for him at the conference.
Very well. Thank you so much. Let's leave it there for now. Some analysis there. Political analyst Ntsikelelo Breakfast just giving us some of his analysis on today's leading events as well as the road leading to the 2024 elections.